All right, welcome everybody to episode 59 of the Inglorious Bastards trilogy. With me tonight is another one of the players, this time my friend John, who played Mor-lómin. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm just doing a series of episodes for the listeners of all of the new players for the second part of the campaign. I think we had like 7 PCs in the second part of the campaign, which is way too many PCs. 4 or 5 is like optimal, but I just couldn't say no. I was really happy to have you with us. You and I have played D&D for a long time together. We also happen to kind of work in the same industry, which is how we met. But I was really happy to have you here, and really happy for you to play your character of Mor-lómin. And if you want, I'll let you. I'll stop yapping. I'll let you talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, well, thanks. And it was great to join the campaign and see where the story had been so far, and then kind of join in as it carried on. But Mor-lómin had a mysterious background, which was a lot of fun to kind of see the different characters kind of handle. And was basically kind of came in, and the group had a hard time deciding kind of what to do with me, really, and it was kind of fun to watch them grapple with it.
So it's going to be a little bit hard to talk about your character without giving a little bit away.
I didn't know how much you want to give away, or
let's just go for it. Let's just go for it because otherwise this is going to be a really cryptic interview. So I'll give a little background. So and the listeners have heard this before. In the first part of the campaign, we met a character called the Creature in the Well, and it was a creature that had been here since arguably the creation of Arda. You could describe it however you want. How the creature maybe crawled out of the shadows, kind of like Ungoliant. And anyway, it didn't really have a name because it was around before things got names. They referred to it as Mor-lómin, and that in me like awakened this idea that there's a whole race of these creatures, and we named these creatures Avathari after the area that Ungoliant came from in Amman, which is a really sort of shadowy, mountainous region. And then you and I got the idea, right, to make an Avathari PC. Enter Mor-lómin.
Yes, and then planning the Avathari player. We spent some time finding a name. That was really cool to kind of piece together a name that I believe means like from the shadows or dark shadows.
Yeah.
So
any number of things.
That was kind of fun too. So I kind of show up on the scene, and the team doesn't know if I'm worth trusting or not, especially with some players having dealt or been very intimately touched by the shadow.
Yes. So essentially the characters, we start with the characters in part 2 where they've just been arrested by the regent of Avalone. Who has succumbed to the shadow, essentially, is being sort of controlled by this shadow Maiar. And somebody who's normally a really good guy ends up locking these PCs who are clearly have just come over on one of Círdan's ships on an important mission, but they essentially arrive and he locks them up. And then we have John's character, Mor-lómin, who kind of stumbles in like crosses the ocean from Avathar. So you end up in Avalone, and they're there, and like you said, we didn't really define whether your character was good or bad. What we defined is what you said, and that's that you like the world the way that it is, and if the big bad or any lesser big bads come back and try to change it, that's not going to be good for you, right?
Yeah, and we were like, I would be basically these creatures. We decided were kind of selfish and wanted what's best for their little land, and kind of insulated. So in this case, I was aligning myself with good, but perhaps if they were evil, I would have aligned with them as well, just to get whatever it is that I wanted.
Right. Right. Well, it was a really fun idea to plan through, and you're right. You show up there in the prison, and all the characters have heard about was this man in black is kind of wandering around doing bad things, right? And they think it's associated with this shadow mire that they had originally let loose back in the first part of the campaign, and now it sort of came through the portal and is infecting people, and there's a man in black and a shadow, and then this man in black shows up and wants to release them from prison.
And I think it was many sessions in that I was still trying to convince them I was not the man in black.
You were a different man in black. But, yeah, yeah. I think I spent the first couple of episodes like sending people graphics and like lore cards and like having chats like, okay, this is what we heard in last week's session. This is what you heard in 2 weeks ago. Like, John's character is this guy, looks like this. The other guy that you saw in your origin session looks like this, right? And then they eventually
because it was so mysterious. I think everybody was expecting some place where there'd be a twist, and it'd be like, oh, he was amongst you all along, but that was not the case.
No. However, if people are looking for a twist, I believe that in around sort of what would have been for us the 8th episode, but what will be for the listeners probably something like episode 84, where something very interesting happens to your character, right? You have this shadowy appearance, right, which almost looks elven, right? But there's something going on underneath. But eventually your character gets hit and gets I think down to like 0 hit points, and something happens to your body where it kind of rips out of the elven form. You remember this?
Yes,
where your Avathari form sort of comes out, and I believe Marco's words were, "Oh my God, it's hideous."
Yes.
So this
was fun too, because I had to play 2 different forms, and if I remember, my Avathari form had different abilities and some moves as well, so that was a lot of fun as well to kind of have the Avathari evolve during the session.
Yeah, and there's plenty of evolution for your character left. I mean, your character was with us to the end, and so there's a lot that happens obviously in the second part of the campaign, but also a lot that happens in the third part of the campaign. And the third part of the campaign is called the Trials of the Valar. So you can imagine some of the adventures that Mor-lómin will go on. Let's go back to you for a second as the player. Tell us how you came to the world of D&D and Tolkien.
Yeah, so I always been interested in D&D, but actually didn't start playing until I met you. So we played, I think, a pretty in-depth campaign of kind of the traditional 5e D&D.
I think we started in 4th edition, buddy.
4th edition, really. And then we would play for a while, and then I would kind of take some time off and we'd come back to another campaign. And I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I want to get back into it. And you were in the midst of this campaign.
And now you will never get back. You will never do that again.
So, relatively, not. I think I was probably one of the least experienced D&D players in the group, and it was it was fun to play in this world that's based off of the D&D rules, but has its own kind of twist and its own take on it as well. It was a lot of fun coming into it. I've liked being at the beginning of campaigns and helping craft the story from early on, but it was kind of fun coming into a story that had been had a past, and then you were a new character coming into it as well, so it was kind of fun.
Well, and in some ways, part 2 of this started the characters fresh. Yeah, there's a little bit of history there, but they're essentially in a new place, in a new time too. Because if you remember, traveling across the straight road for them wasn't like the snap of a finger.
Was it like 60 something years?
Yeah, 60 some years. And so for Riken, that meant he was trapped in the portal for what seemed like 60 plus years with the shadow creature. sort of having it burn him and sort of permeate his body. And where it didn't take him over, it sure left a scar. The idea of, I think I called it trauma, right? Where Tolkien's all about sort of good and evil, right? And the light and the shadow, right? And after being in this world for so long and traveling through so many of these blighted lands and sort of seeing so many of these evil things, it's bound to leave a mark on you, right? Mm-hmm. So so tell us more. Sorry to switch gears on you, but tell us more about Tolkien, your entry point to Tolkien.
Yeah, and I think I would probably be on the more casual side of Tolkien, but it was great to kind of get immersed in the world and learn a lot about it. Like I didn't know about Avatar.
Probably the reason you haven't heard of that is we just basically made it up, right?
Okay.
So the race is made up, but it's based off of obviously real creatures.
Yep.
And so coming into this kind of cold is, I can imagine it's a little disorienting, right? Because first of all, you're in somebody's made up world, like right off the bat, right? Like it's an amalgam of like a J.R.R. Tolkien and Gary Gygax, like if they had a baby, here we are, we're in this world, and then Jared has put his own spin on it, right? Like, so I can imagine that was is this fake? Or is this fake lore, or is this fake lore? Like, yes. What am I learning? Yeah, but it's
fiction, or is it fan fiction?
Yeah, right. Or is it fan fiction about fan fiction? The good thing about playing in a world like this is not to make up too much, or if you do make it up, make it seem plausible, right?
Well, and how cool is that there's a story that is so deep and rich that like many other stories can be told inside of it, and I think that's pretty cool that for Tolkien that created something that is like alive and that people are still making things inside of it. So.
Well, what's super cool, and I'm sure this will come up more in sort of part 3, but I believe we've already sort of dropped the bombshell that this trilogy is the realization of the Dagor Dagorath prophecy. It's the Second Prophecy of Mandos. Mandos was, of course, a Valar who watched over dead people and made prophecies in his spare time. And this second prophecy business about the end of the world, the last battle with Morgoth, when he sort of breaks through the door of night and comes back, and there's a certain configuration of people in Valar that rise up against him, and that was the world is so big and so elaborate that you have something like this Second Prophecy of Mandos, which Tolkien was just like, I don't think I'm going to use that, right? Like, so it's like it's not even a part of the lore. It's like an afterthought or something else, but something that it was amazing to plan a campaign around, right? So in case the listeners hadn't heard those other episodes, we are leading up to the final battle. All of the things that the characters and the players have set into motion are coming down to this, return of Morgoth, a final battle. And Mor-lómin will be there through it all with us. So I'm going to end. I promised you that I would only interview you for about 20 minutes and I'd let you go back to your family. So tell us if there's anything that you can think about that they have to look forward to, other than things that we mentioned already. Is there, at this point, the listeners are traveling through, I believe, the land of elves and coming into or about to arrive at the Cottage of Lost Play. Is there anything that you remember, a specific creature, a specific item, any NPC? You mentioned some that were coming up, I believe. Is there anything that they can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really liked just kind of being immersed in the story. And I know early on in the second part here that we were kind of looking forward to an Elvish festival. And that was kind of a fun session. It was like totally something different, but it was. And I remember that might have been one of the sessions we laughed the most, just because of different feats of whatever people trying to come up with. So that was a lot of fun. And then I think you did a really good job of like introducing things that kind of would come and go and come back into the story. I think about the session. I can't remember if this was in the second part, but we spent quite a bit of time on a boat. That was a lot of fun.
That's right. As they say, I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Yeah.
That was pretty interesting, like a totally different kind of setting for us to be in, and to see how some of our abilities and attacks would work when you're constrained by being inside the boat.
So we have two. I think. We have essentially 2 times that we're on a boat. It might end up being more than just 2 sessions. We have just a little preview for things to come. The characters take a boat to the Enchanted Isles and to the Tower of Pearl. So that will be coming up somewhere around episode 70, and then again. You will be I'm on a boat. You'll be on a boat again and around episode 83 or 84. So there are a few naval battles in part 2 of this campaign to look forward to. Absolutely. Yeah. So with that, I will say thank you, and I hope I can convince you to come back for the player reunion right around. Probably episode 100 if you can if I can count on you in another 6 months.
Yeah, I'd be glad to be there, and thanks for taking this story and kind of preparing it into something that can be shared with others. But that's awesome.
Thanks, man. We really appreciated having you, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.